Pleasure to be here. I'm going to stand because I want to make sure I can see your faces. Before I do anything else, I want to introduce Ruby Jones, who's here. She's, I think, the only board member currently serving who's with us today. Thank you, Ruby, for coming. She's also on the policy committee with me. We also have two former board members. Louise Woods is here at the table up in the front, and Amelia Benson-Wesley is in back. And we have one of our newly elected board members, Elise Deshu, is back here. So Elise, raise your hand or stand up. Thank you all for being here. Thanks for the opportunity to come and talk about this. I have been on the policy committee all the 10 years I've been on the board, and I've been chairing it for a while. I want you to know, first of all, that the Board of Education is, in some ways, primarily a policy board. That is to say, we set the direction for the district, and I'm glad to see in the handouts you have our vision, core beliefs, and commitments. Those were written 10 years ago, and then they've been revised, I think actually minimal revisions twice. But those set the direction for the district. That's what the board does, and then the superintendent, whom we employ and support as long as we can, is the person who makes it all work. What we don't do as a board is assign teachers to schools or assign students to classrooms. We get asked about that a lot when people don't like where they're assigned or don't like a teacher or don't like something. What we do, though, as a board is that if something happens and it comes to the point of a challenge of some sort, the board stands as the kind of court of last appeal for all sorts of things, whether it's related to students and discipline or to teachers or other staff members and their employment with CMS. I was struck this morning when I arrived and somebody said he was looking forward to hearing me say nothing for 10 minutes because I really don't have much to say. The board makes the decisions about student assignment. We have not made any new decisions so far. We've been working on it for some time. We've had lots of ideas for the public, and I have put at your places a copy of our student assignment plan that actually the board has been using, this form that has blanks on the side so you can write in the ideas you have because we're really looking for input. We have started out as a policy committee to be doing this work initially, but we recognize that the board is going to need a lot of input. We've talked about whether or not to have a survey of some sort. There's a survey going on, which you may mention, that we may be able to use instead of doing our own, which would probably be very good news. The guidelines for student assignment, again, are guidelines that the board chooses to have, and then they are given to our staff in order to figure out a way to make sure that that's the way we assign students. And the board ultimately has in many ways, approval over how that form looks, but we do the guiding principles as a policy board. So what we are looking at is how we can change how we can go become the district we want to be when we say that we want to have the best education available anywhere for every student in every school. And we want to have really the best, and we recognize we don't. Some of you know that the state now grades our schools on an A to F format. I've met people whose kids were in great schools until they found the grade, and when they found out it was a D or an F, then they were upset with the school being so bad. I mean, it is crazy, but it has the effect of changing an opinion, even though you like what your child is getting. When you see that grade of F, it is really difficult to keep going forward. So we're dealing with that sort of thing. The Board of Education, these guiding principles are really important to get right. We have had suggestions from the public of everything from just basically a word or two saying our guiding principles are that we're going to educate children, period, that's it, to some fairly lengthy things people have written for us. We also have asked all of our board members to fill out this sheet that you have in front of you so that they can give their best guidance on what we want to do. And Some of us have filled it out and some of us haven't, but all of us have talked about it. What we want to try to make sure happens is that we really do get to the place where we can educate every student in every school. I remain convinced that it is certainly possible to get a very fine education at every single school in Charlotte-Mecklenburg. The difficulty is that it's harder, much harder in some schools, and much harder for some kids. That there just isn't, it just is going to be much more difficult to get a great education for some kids. And part of that is not because of who the children are in the sense of their being individual children. It is when we have through our, after the court case that we had in the late 90s and then finally the choice plan and then the revision of that we basically have lived with for the last 12 years or so. And Thelma Byers-Bailey, a current board member, has just arrived too, so Thelma, welcome. What has happened in the last 10 years particularly is that our district has resegregated. And where we had pretty good desegregation going for a long time and some good work that came out of that, and we now have many more schools that are racially identifiable or socioeconomically identifiable. And it's not that a teacher is a bad teacher in some classrooms and a good teacher in others. Sometimes it's because in one classroom the teacher gets 18 to 25 students who come ready. They've already read books. They're already doing everything. They know their numbers. They know their colors. Believe it or not, they even know their names. I mean, I'm serious. There are children who come to kindergarten who don't know their names. They've never held a book. I had a principal, elementary school principal, tell me that he used to get kids who were, he called them 3 grade levels below kindergarten when they arrived. I said, we don't have any grade levels below kindergarten. He said, I know, but they are, and we can raise them 3 grade levels, but we send them to 1st grade at entering kindergarten level. So they've done amazing work, but can't do it all. We have got to find a way through our student assignment plan, not just our guiding principles, but they're going to set the standard. We've got to find a way to make sure that every student in every school gets the best education possible. And that's why we're taking the time we are to do this. It's also happening at a time when we have a superintendent with a timetable. We agreed with Ann Clark. She agreed with us. We negotiated a contract that she would be not interim superintendent, but full superintendent, but with a time frame to end on July 31st of 2016. And the board has not yet taken action to really get a search going for a new superintendent, nor have we taken action to do anything with Ann Clark about extending the term. So we're doing these two things kind of at the same time, recognizing that there's great difficulty with that. We know that when a new superintendent comes, he or she comes with some ideas and some track record and some things that they probably want to accomplish, especially in Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools. Even though we have a difficult phase here in Charlotte-Mecklenburg, around the country, people think we're doing a really good job. I mean, it's really kind of fascinating to see that, but we see it all the time. Student assignment is going to have to deal with whoever the superintendent is. Superintendent Clark right now is meeting with the policy committee practically every time he meets to make sure that she hears what's going on and that she has input to what we're talking about. But we recognize that when we get a new superintendent, we will have to make sure that that person is coming ready to use this, whatever our guiding principles will be. So we need your input. We need your help. Please fill those things out. You can hand them to me if you want to fill them out right while you're talking, while you're listening to other things today. I've got cards up here on the front table if you want to take one of my cards, and you can send it to me or email it to me, or you can just send me an email with some of your thoughts. I don't care how I get it, but I really would like to hear from you. Everywhere I go, I'm talking and saying, please, give us ideas. Tell us what you think we need to be doing. So, it's right, I can't tell tell you what our student assignment plan is going to be. But I can tell you that we have, at least as our direction, to have the best education available for every student in every school. So thank you for the opportunity to be with you this morning.
Thank you, Tom.